Hey, welcome back. And in this video today, we have a big topic, and we're going to cover what happened with money in the start of the Bronze Age. And during the start of the Bronze Age, we established the foundational concepts of what we today consider money. And this has to do with the societal convergence that we had on the use of metals and metal coinage, and using metals solely for the purpose of a medium of exchange. And so let's get started. And with the Bronze Age, we had a revolutionary new capability with respect to tools and machinery. And so when the Bronze Age started, wheat and salt were the predominant forms of money. So most societies had prices and accounting all based on wheat. But now we have this new advanced technology, and things started changing quickly. So farming, for example, the same farm from the Stone Age, now in the Bronze Age with the right tools could farm and produce 10 to 100 times more output. And likewise, this kind of explosion in production happened in nearly every industry. And also this effect and this impact generally happened around the same time in all these different regions across most of the known civilizations. And it was a combination of each region having their own simultaneous discovery in each region, and then there also was a sharing of technology and advancements between regions. So it was a combination of the two of those. And then also at the start of the Bronze Age, we went from living in these small groups, these clans, these tribes, to now having our first true cities in these like sprawling urban areas. And this brings us now to our problem. This is the Bronze Age gave us a large problem now with exchange. So now we have these specialized industries, these advanced industries. We're mass producing way more than we can consume. And many people are now living in these large cities. And all of this leads to mass trade across civilizations. And our legacy solutions for this, for trade and exchange, for all intents and purposes, were obsolete. There was no way that this technology could satisfy this new challenge. So this is the new exchange problem, or the money problem, for the Bronze Age. And the other pieces to this problem, say that you work in construction, you're also going to have less access now to things like wheat, cattle, salt, and with the more quantities needed of wheat, salt, cattle, etc., just the actual real estate to store those things became gigantic. And then to transport these gigantic quantities also just goes into the realm of the unfeasible. So these are all pieces of the problem. And as we took our solution to this problem, and we'll cover this in a second. Start with just an important point on this section and the origins of what we have as modern day money. So very quickly in the Bronze Age, to solve this problem, we replaced this solution that had been happening for hundreds and thousands of years. We found a solution that was very different. And we're going to walk through how this happened. And we're going to use an argument that's made by Carl Menger. And there are a couple of counterpoints to what he has in his book. But I think for at least this specific step, for shaped metals, this first draft of coinage, I think he has a really good explanation for how this happened. And it goes like this. Generally, at the beginning of the Bronze Age, we had this small number of business-savvy individuals, and these individuals now had these much larger quantities of goods that were produced to exchange, and they had much longer distances. And here's another way to see this problem. So here we had a small tribe or a clan or a small family. They produced only what they consumed, and then they traded. But then in a short amount of time, thanks to Bronze Age technologies, now what we need is this very elaborate operation, and we have an individual that manages this. This is the savvy business person. So we've got these same individuals now with this advanced machinery. They can produce 100 times more of these axes, and now bronze axes, and with the right management in place, this individual supporting them, they can sell their goods. This individual buys them, transports them across land and sea, gets them to a distribution facility, could be very far away, and then this facility now sells to all these individuals in the public. So the need to trade and transport and the middlemen, all this becomes much more complicated. And salt and wheat were not at all suited for this the new order, the new magnitude of this problem. Salt and wheat were not well suited. So our savvy business person here, this person goes and takes stock of the options that are available. And we already know that salt and wheat are not well suited. And then this person also knows that, well, there were these raw materials and stone tools that I had in the Stone Age. I could trade these things. They do have value. But now, because of the Bronze Age and the new technology to smelt metal, maybe these metals could also have intrinsic value. So I'm gonna take a closer look at these metals. So let's examine the metals. Number one, do they have value? And the answer is yes. And foremost, at the start of the Bronze Age, you could use these metals in tools, and they were much more durable. The quality of these tools was far superior to the Stone Age. But then also, interestingly, so metals are found in the ground, and they are also dispersed generally over the entire Earth. So every community that we would encounter was already familiar with these metals. And then in terms of durability, metals can obviously last a very long period of time. And then the value of the metals is also tied to their scarcity or rareness. We'll get into this in the next topic of gold. So in terms of transportability, you could have a higher value per weight and volume. So this volume of wheat, you could transport in this amount of silver and this amount of gold, be much lighter. So your transportation needs, they could become 100 or 1,000 times easier by using metals. And then it's also very easy to divide metals, because we had blacksmiths. Metals were malleable. You could get them to a certain shape. You could weigh them and insert a certain weight. And then additionally, between gold, silver, and copper, and varying degrees of their scarceability, you had different values. So very quickly you could reach the right level of divisibility in a simple fashion. So 5,000 years ago, this savvy business person, or one of a handful of people that started trying this, realized that metals may have potential to solve this new large exchange problem, and said, hey, I'm going to give this a try. And this person started their operation, and metals worked. You could take lots of materials, you could transport them long ways, lots of intermediaries, lots of needs for accurate, quick divisibility, and metals would get the job done. And then what happened was, a few other people saw that this person was having success with this solution, and then they started doing it. And then gradually this was adopted by most of the civilization. It probably took a few hundred years for societal adoption. And a key point here is the change of intrinsic value that happened with money. So we started off in this section with exchanged items that were very closely tied to our literal survival, and in the Stone Age. And in the Stone Age, we had other items that were valued based on their scarcity, but these played a very minor role in money. And then starting in the Bronze Age, and by the middle of the Bronze Age, we had exchanged these, and we had now arrived at scarce metals. This is our first draft of coinage. These are just shaped metals. these were items that we could use as a medium of exchange. We could take the items we needed, or we'd take the items that we have. In return, we could get this shaped metal, and we hold that shaped metal, and then we go to the items that we need, that we want to have, and we make the exchange using the shaped metal. So these were a medium. These were a medium of exchange, and the difference here is these metals could not be consumed. So this item as money could be consumed. These items here cannot be consumed. Their value was largely based on, number one, they had scarcity. They were hard to come by. They had a little bit of value linked to their usefulness, because you could use these to some extent in tools, jewelry. With gold, there was an element of social status. But largely the value that we placed on these coinage was linked to, or the value that we placed on these shaped metals was linked to their function as a very, very useful medium of exchange. They had an excellent ability to support our much larger problem now of exchange, and that is why we valued them. And just a quick statement on this step, it probably took a few hundred years for us to go through the learning curve and figure out what materials were best suited. So in conclusion, Carl Menger, he posits that money was a solution that was defined by individuals, collectively defined by individuals in a society seeking to maximize their own self-interest, seeking to find their best medium of exchange to support their needs. And I think the most common counterpoint to this, and we'll cover this in a future video, is that the intrinsic value had nothing to do with, had more to do with the government stepping in and mandating the use of these metals. And it was the government mandate is what assured the metals as a money that the rest of society would accept. And I personally think this point is more plausible. I found lots of supporting information on this, but we will give this point a fair shake and in a future video.